Welcome to the Broken Chain Podcast, your favorite podcast that unpacks complex supply chain issues hiding in plain sight. I'm your host, Sam Nelson. Tonight we're diving into a multi-billion-dollar problem that you might not have heard of, tariff fraud. Specifically, how it's shaking up one of our most critical sectors, the pharmaceutical industry. With us tonight, we have a fantastic panel. We have Stephen Pemberton, a Butler University MBA student currently studying operations and supply chain management and who has years of experience in the trucking industry. Welcome, Stephen.
Glad to be here, Sam.
Also with us, Jacob Burrish, a pharmacy specialist with a unique background in pharmaceutical manufacturing and who has worked in the industry for about 7 years. Jacob, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, Sam, thank you for having me on the podcast.
No problem. And rounding out our panel, Angelina Pemberton. Angelina, is it all right if I call you Angie?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Angie is a registered nurse and an MBA student at Butler University who has a strong understanding of medical law. Angie, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
Stephen, let's start with the basics for our listeners. When we say tariff fraud, what are we actually talking about here?
In the simplest terms, it's lying to customs to pay less tax. Every product imported into the United States has a specific classification code from the Harmonized Tariff Schedule, or HTS. That code dictates the tariff or import duty that's owed. Fraudsters use a few main tricks. They might lie about the value of the goods, called undervaluation. They might lie about the country of origin to dodge higher tariffs, known as transshipment, but the most insidious method, especially in the pharma world, is misclassification.
So, essentially, deliberately putting the wrong label on something to get a lower tax rate. Is that correct?
Precisely. Imagine importing a basic cotton t shirt with a 10% tariff versus a performance fabric athletic shirt with a 25% tariff. A dishonest importer might bring in a shipping container of athletic shirts but declare them as simple cotton ones, illegally saving tens of thousands of dollars.
That makes it very clear. So, Jacob, let's bring this into your world. Why is the pharmaceutical industry such a ripe target for this kind of scheme?
Yeah, Sam, it really comes down to two different things. It's the high value of pharmaceutical goods and the high complexity of them. So, the raw materials that we use to manufacture drugs is called an active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API. And essentially, it's just a complex chemical compound. And like we spoke before, so each product has an HTS, or harmonized tariff schedule. And a pharmaceutical API, the HTS code is very specific to that chemical. And a chemical that has a precursor is of a highly prescribed drug, such as like a weight loss drug or Adderall, for example. It could have a 6.5% tariff. And a nearly identical chemical compound that may have the same therapeutic effect, um, maybe just a small, slight difference in the chemical compound, it could be tax free. So this just has big implications on potential fraud.
So, an importer could save millions by checking a different box on a form. Is that correct?
Essentially, yes, because we're talking about drugs that are so similar that really they wouldn't be able to be distinguished apart unless we did a full lab analysis. So we're talking about single shipments that are worth tens of millions of dollars. An importer who wants to falsify a specific compound uh, is willing to evade millions of dollars in taxes and tariffs for a single shipment. What they're hoping for is that a customs agent who is highly skilled at what they do in their own respect won't be able to notice the difference between the two pharmaceutical APIs. This is essentially a fake import that wouldn't really be able to be identified without a full lab analysis.
So, energy from a legal perspective, this I can understand from the drug perspective, maybe a little bit. However, if you're lying about synthetic fibers versus cotton to avoid tariffs, this sounds like a very clean white collar crime. Who's actually getting hurt here?
That's actually a common misconception, Sam. It's far from a victimless crime. First, it's a direct theft from the US Treasury. That's money that should be funding everything from infrastructures to healthcare. Second, it cripples honest businesses. A domestic drug manufacturer or an importer who plays by the rules and pays their proper duties simply cannot compete on prices with a company that is cheating the system. That costs Americans jobs.
Okay, we put it that way. It's a little more clear. With pharmaceuticals, I have to assume the risk goes beyond just money and jobs.
Oh, it absolutely does. And this is the most critical point. Tariff fraud can be a gateway to public health crises. If a company is willing to lie to the federal government about a chemical classification of a drug ingredient, what else are they lying about? The drug's purity, the drug's potency. Are they sourcing it from an unapproved, unsafe facility? This isn't just about avoiding tariffs. It can be about sneaking substandard or even counterfeit ingredients into the US drug supply chain. The consequences of this can be deadly.
That's a chilling thought. So, Stephen, how does Customs and Borders Protection even begin to untangle this web?
It's really a constant battle. The CBP's analytics are very sophisticated, looking for red flags in import data. For instance, if an importer who has always imported a dutiable chemical suddenly switches to a similar duty free one, that warrants a closer look. But a huge number of cases are initiated by whistleblowers, often employees with the company who see fraud happening and report it to the government under the False Claims Act. Their tips are invaluable.
And Angie, for a company or an executive caught doing this, what are the consequences for something like this?
They're pretty severe, Sam. Civilly, the company can be forced to pay back three times the amount of duties they evaded, plus the penalties. We're talking fines that can easily reach into the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Criminally, the executives who orchestrated the scheme can be charged for smuggling, wire fraud, and conspiracy. That means prison time for them. Furthermore, the company can be debarred, which blocks them from doing any business with the US government, a death blow for any major pharmaceutical firm.
A massive risk for a dishonest reward. We are just about out of time here. Final 15 seconds from each of you. Jacob, you want to get us going first?
Yeah, Sam. So really, this fraud just highlights the dangerous lack of transparency that we could have in our global supply chain, especially in pharmaceutics. And the biggest thing that I have to say here is just know where you're getting your products from in the pharmaceutical industry.
Stephen?
Just remember that customs form isn't just paperwork. It's extremely important that it's filled out correctly. It's not just a shield for our economy, but it's also a shield for our public health.
Angie?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a victimless corporate crime. The cost is always paid by someone. And in this case, the price to pay could end up being a human life if this issue is not brought to light.
All right, Stephen, Jacob, Angie, thank you all for shedding light on this important topic. It's always important for us to get more knowledge about the supply chain. That's all we have time for. The Broken Chain Podcast. I'm Samuel. Thanks for listening, guys.